All right, Akim. Shalom, shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. And salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai, back in here with another quick and Lord's will as always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to add a little bit to, the lesson that my elder and other elder brothers in the camp have just done. And the title I have here is just a quick snippet. It says, "We are the weak things the enemy likes to boast at," right? So something along those lines. And it kind of reminded me of a quick account in the scriptures, and I kind of wanted to get it because that's kind of the spirit. We kind of represent those weak things, the lowly, the poor man. The Ecclesiastes 9 talks about the poor man, about, he delivered that great city, and essentially the poor man's wisdom is despised, right? And what I also want to touch on as well, if you have, us, the hopeful elect, the apostles, the prophets representing the poor man. You also have a guy like, in these times, Donald Trump, who essentially represents the proud, essentially, somebody who, they don't consider the ways, nor do they consider the Most High at all, right? And they essentially have a spirit of is essentially a spirit that's on them. Is a spirit of pride, and the scriptures talk about that too, right? So let me get that actually, because what we have now, what we're experiencing in these times, is the spirit that's on Trump, saying what he's going to do. Like one of the things, for example, that he's boasting in and essentially, taking great pride in is the fact that he's going to end the war going on in between Russia and Ukraine and so on and so forth. Right. So, he's taking, pleasure in, boasting against these things. Right. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at as well, So let me get that scripture on regards to pride, right? So this is Sirach. This is Sirach chapter 10, verse 12, and it says, "The beginning of pride is when one departeth from the Most High, and his heart is turned away from his Maker. For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination." So everything that's coming out of Trump's mouth is an abomination. He's thinking about, making America great again. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Everything's going to go back to normal, so on and so forth. But we know, pursuing to the prophecies, like for example Jeremiah 51, we know that we know that Babylon won't be healed, forsake her, right? And she shall ultimately be destroyed by fire, right? So these are the things that we know, right, pursuing to the Holy Scriptures, right? So this is why I'm talking about as well, that we know that the poor man's wisdom is despised, because they're not considering these people who are lowly, that are speaking these things on the highways and byways. They're not considering these things because we don't look like the well clean-cut, well-shaven, well-spoken types of individuals that should be considered of what is actually being done on the planet Earth and what is happening on the planet Earth. We're just publishing it, right? So, verse 13, and it says, "For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it pour out abomination, and therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly," right? So, that's one of the things that you've seen that's currently, going on in America. And you see the type of individuals that he's aligning with. And one of the individuals he's aligning with is this guy named Elon Musk. And we already know what he's about with his Neuralink program and so on and so forth, so so there's another scripture that actually came to mind in regards to, so that's kind of the sentiment I kind of want to echo at and stress here, is the pride of, essentially these, I don't want to say he's an elite, but he's somebody that's, in the power seat, right? And essentially, boasting in these great things, so-called great things, right? So Jeremiah 9 verse 23, and it says, let not, thus saith the Lord Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him that glorieth glory in this. But let him glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth, knoweth me, that I am the Lord, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness on the earth. For in these things I delight, saith the Lord, right? So the Lord doesn't delight, in guys like that, guys like, Trump and so on and so forth. We need to bring back the spirit of praying and all this kind of stuff, right? So a couple other points, because I wrote down a couple precepts like real quickly, right? And as the brothers were talking, this is the kind of sentiment, because he wants to do a lot of mass, essentially, deportation, and end these wars and so on and so forth that's going on, right? And he's not going to consider what is actually being spoken by the lowly, by the prophets, by the men that you see on the highways and byways, speaking the prophecy into the existence, right? He's not considering these things. His heart is essentially hardened. Right? So the count I kind of wanted to grab quickly, because it he reminded me of this character in the book of Kings. Let me just get it. So it's 2 Kings. Okay, I just started at verse 1. So this is 2 Kings 19, verse 1. And it says, and it came to pass, when Hezekiah heard it, that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth, and went into the house of the Lord, and sent Eliakim, which was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet and the son of Amos, and said unto him, thus saith Hezekiah, this day a day of trouble, and of rebuke and blasphemy, for the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy power will hear the words of Rabshakeh, it says, whom the king of Assyria, his master, hath sent to reproach the living power, and reprove the words which the Lord thy power hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer, for the remnant are left. I'll read that in the NLT actually. It says, perhaps the Lord your power has heard the Assyrian chief of staff, sent by the king to defy the living power, and punish him for his words. Oh, pray for those of us who are left. So essentially in this chapter, what you have is this Assyrian king, right? Like I want to get into in a second. And what's happening is he's boasting essentially in the things that, that he's essentially done, and what he will supposedly do, right? But in the end of the chapter, it doesn't go the way he plans it, right? So essentially the Lord, came to Hezekiah's rescue, and it kind of threw him a monkey wrench in his plans, if that makes sense. So I want to read down a little bit, and as a matter of fact, one second. Okay, so I'll just keep reading here, and it says, so the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said to them, Thus shall ye say to your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words which thou hast heard, which the servants of the king of Assyria has blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and shall return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword of his own land. And that's exactly what happened, right? So, because this is the mindset. Okay, so this is the king's name here, Sennacherib, right? And this is the mindset that he actually had, right? So I kind of wanted to parallel this story, like just parallel this with the same sentiment and the same mindset that Donald Trump has. It's the exact same, pride that is stirred up in his spirit. It's the same level and type of pride that this individual here, because they're both boasting, great things, right? And what the Lord did essentially later on in the story, like I said earlier, he threw essentially he threw a huge monkey wrench in the plan, right? So I just wanted to get into what he kind of said just a little bit. So I'm just going to jump around. So it says, verse 8, so Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring with Libnah, for he had heard that he was departed from Lachish. And when he heard say of Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, behold, he is come to fight against thee, he sent messengers again unto Hezekiah, saying, thus shall he speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, let not the Most High, whom thou trustest, deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem shall not be delivered into the king of Assyria. Behold, thou hast heard the things of Assyria have done in all lands, but by destroying them utterly shalt thou be delivered. Have not the gods of the nations delivered them from my fathers, have destroyed as Gozan and Haran and Rezeph, and the children of Eden, which were in Thelasar? Where is the king of Hamath, and the king of Arpad, and the king of the city of Sepharvaim, and of Hena, and of Eva, right? So he's kind of listing off his, think of it as a job interview. You're interviewing this guy, a potential candidate, and this is what that Sennacherib is essentially doing. He's listing off, this is what I've done. Where was he? I did this, I did that. Check that off, check this off. I'm capable of doing this. This is the pride that he's giving off, right? So, for the sake of time, I don't want to go through the entire chapter. So Hezekiah, essentially what happens is he makes his prayer unto the Lord, right? And the Lord came to his defense and came to his rescue. This is why Hezekiah is one of those few righteous kings. When you look through the accounts of all the other kings that have reigned, not just the kings of Judah, but also the kings of Israel, right? He was one of those few. So, just to, boost the morale, this is what, and keep in mind as well, this is what the Lord did, right? So it says, verse 35, and it came to pass that night that an angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 180,500. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. And Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt in Nineveh. And it came to pass, when he was worshipping in the house of Nisroch his god, and that Adremelech and Sharezer his son smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia, and Esarhaddon his son reigned in his stead, right? So essentially this is what happened, and he got his own judgment, and the Lord came through, for Hezekiah. So I guess that's the other flip side of the lesson, because in these times, even in times of tribulation, because we know that, Esau's going to come down with great wrath, because he knows he has a short time. we want the Lord to essentially and pray that the Lord comes through for us and have mercy upon us and protect us in those times, just like he did for Hezekiah. That's why it's so important that the things that are written aforetime are also written for our learning, right? So we know about these accounts and we feel a sense of comfort in these, in these things that the Lord had done. One of the things I've noticed, with a lot of our righteous forefathers, they always had a habit of looking back, about the things that, their forefathers did for them and the things that the Lord did for them, right? And came through for them, right? So they can remember these things, especially in times of distress and tribulation, because, there were moments, you might feel tense because we're in this flesh, but the scriptures talk about how the earthly tabernacle, it presseth down the soul, right? But it's just the remembering these things brings a sense of comfort as well, right? And even in even distress as well, because I skipped the part where he spoke about his prayer. And that's another thing too. He prayed. He prayed to the Heavenly Father, right? And this is something I normally bring out, that the prayers of the humble pierce the clouds, right? And it's something that we want the Lord to remember, in those times, in these times, I should say. So let me get. So that was really pretty much the point I wanted to kind of add, onto the lesson. Really, and I guess I'll just end off with this. Okay, Psalms 140, and I start at verse 1, and it says, "Deliver me, O Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, from the evil man, preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their hearts continually as they gather together for war. They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent, adder's poison is under their lips. Keep me, O Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, from the hands of the wicked, and preserve me from the violent man, who have purposed, to overthrow my goings," right? Because, scriptures talk about how there's going to be a great, insurrection of those who fear the Lord, right? And they really just want the hopeful elect. They want those apostles and prophets, and because they have essentially the secrets, right? We're kind of causing essentially a rain on their parade, right? So I guess I'll just read this last point, and it says, "The proud have hid a snare for me and cords, and they have spread a net by the wayside." So essentially they're coming up with devious plans to actually, to entrap us up, right? It says, "They have set gins for me, Salah. I say unto the Lord Yahweh, thou art my power, hear the voice of my supplications," right? So, this is very good, because we want the Lord to hear us, now, and especially in those times to come, right? So anyways, that's pretty much the point I kind of wanted to hit on the lesson. But for the sake of time, I didn't want to make the lesson too long. I kind of just wanted to hit that point, in regards to the pride, and the pride that this Trump character is emanating, is very, very similar to this character, this Assyrian king Sennacherib, that was found in the book of Kings, right? So anyways, I sincerely pray that this lesson was edifying. It was kind of on my spirit and on my mind, and I kind of just wanted to add to my elder's lesson. But I'll just leave it there. But hopefully you're edified, and I'd like to give our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.